Next, we have the public hearing for Ordinance 1809, ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 428, Article 3 of the Code of Township of Vernon entitled Charitable Solicitations. This ordinance amends the solicitation chapter to allow for roadside solicitations. May I have a motion to open the public hearing for Ordinance 1809?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up and address this ordinance?
Yes, I would like to. Sally Rinker, Vernon.
First of all, thank you, John, for making the motion on that paragraph number F. That was, thank the council for reconsidering that paragraph. Regarding Ordinance 18-09, charitable solicitations, this township drafted ordinance does not resemble the state statute. Our mayor incorrectly reported that at the last town council meeting, stating it is almost word for word. I don't know what he was reading, but that statement is patently false. I have 3 copies here of the state statute. 2009, there were other revisions, 13 and 16.
Could you just clarify which provision of the...
Excuse me?
Could you clarify which provision of the statute you're reading from? NJSA what?
39:4-60.
Okay.
Yes. And I don't understand why Vernon is adding nonsense to the state statute, such as receipts for donations, no 2 groups can solicit within 2 miles of one another, and so on. And there are various other unnecessary and onerous requests to follow the ordinance that's going to be passed possibly tonight. So I would like to ask the council to just consider reaffirming the state statute. No one's suggesting that we don't follow state statutes, and of course, you know, they trump town statutes, ordinances anyway. But I don't understand why we need to add unnecessary things that are really defeating the purpose of fundraising for our local charitable organizations. I don't think we should be hurting the efforts of our emergency responders, our veterans, and other charitable organizations that rely on this type of fundraising. So perhaps this ordinance should really be looked at a little more carefully so that we don't, make it such a hardship on the organizations that the end result will be less donations. And that really will work against the entire purpose of it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address?
Randy Mills, Vernon Township, Chief of Police. Try to clarify some confusion here. Part of the language that they're referring to about the donation receipts, that was part of an existing solicitation ordinance that has existed forever. What has been added, there's been nothing added to the solicitation ordinance that's not required by 39-4-60 other than one thing, and that is the requirement, at my request, that solicitations not take part within 2 miles of each other. We talked about that range, we negotiated it, and whatnot. The idea was that we have had times in town where the McAfee Fire Department was running a fun ride, Vernon Fire Department or the VFW was at the other Burger King intersection, and then one of the other emergency services decided to set up on Church Street. It is not reasonable for the normal flow of traffic to have 2 fund drives that close to each other where it's actually backing them up. They don't do these fund drives on a Wednesday afternoon. They do them on the already established busiest traffic days. This ordinance was put forth for them, not against them. 39-460 requires we have this ordinance. If you table it tonight, you're putting in serious jeopardy them to have the ability to run this fund drive in the Memorial Day weekend, which is one of their biggest weekends. You'd have to do that math. I'm trying to do it in my head. I can't figure that out, but it's important that we get that done. They already lost President's Weekend. 39-460 requires that the township come forth with an ordinance. We've only proposed what's legally required within 39-460, except for that one thing, which is the 2-mile radius. We had all different language. This is what we settled on. There was no objections from anybody. We talked to the fire departments, to the VFW, and to the EMS squads. There were no objections from them to the 2-mile radius. It's important, like I said, without that, we could have another fund drive set up in front of the AMP the same time somebody's in front of the Burger King, the same time somebody's in front of Church Street. It's just not reasonable for the comfortable flow of traffic through the township. So I'll put out now, does anybody have any questions for me about the ordinance? You have to understand, there was an existing solicitation ordinance. A lot of that language people have problems with, that was not added. That's always been there.
Any of the council members have any questions?
I have a problem with 4, Chief, in that you're asking them to run across, stop traffic, which means.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm not.
Well,
39460 says.
Well, you can't solicit while traffic's moving, but I
Right.
don't think it says anything in there that you have to return to the shoulder of the road.
Well, you
once
can't
traffic's
be on the roadway while traffic's moving.
It says solicit while traffic is moving.
I don't
agree.
have it in front of me, the wording. Look, I can tell you right now, as a police department, we're not looking to micromanage this. In hindsight, I should have probably just went to the fire chiefs and the EMS and said, hey, you guys need to get an ordinance. And I should have stood back and let it go, because the police department, it doesn't have zero impact on us whether or not you pass this ordinance. All right? We're not the fundraising police. We're not going to be out there looking for them to make the slightest little violation. But at the same time, we have to make sure that they're following the law. Until West Milford passed theirs, to be honest with you, I didn't even know that this existed. And that's what instigated this at this time. I said, okay, I guess we have to do that here. We had started this process early enough that we should have been done by now. Anybody knows me. I'm an exempt firefighter in this township. I spent a long time on the Vernon Township ambulance squad, and obviously I've been on the police department a long time. I'm certainly not looking to hurt those people, and I believe they all know that. The problem is the language, the receipt, but I think the way the receipt thing's worded is like if practical or something.
It's not even in the state statute.
It's not, but again, that's not what was added. That was always there.
We could remove it since the state doesn't require
I have no
it.
problem with if you remove that. That has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to. I don't know if it's in another state statute as far as IRS regulations or something, but I have no problem if you release that. I actually think it's a bad idea, because even if it took a couple extra seconds per car to generate that receipt, that's backing up traffic even more. So I'd prefer it not be in there too. So if you can just strike that one line, that might solve your problem. But I don't know if there's issues on the other end. But I wanted everybody to understand there was an existing ordinance. That language in particular and some of the other things people had problems with were part of the existing ordinance. The only thing that was added that's not required by law to the new ordinance you're looking at is my request that fund drives not be run too close to each other. And that's the language it came up with.
do you have any problem with a 90-day reissuance? In other words,
I don't care
why
how
can't we do it
frequently
every-
they do
a
them.
year?
Well, I have no input. I have no personal opinion, no department opinion as to how often they do them. That has no impact on me, other than I just want to make sure that we, the township, are following the law. So I don't care if they, do them every weekend. That I have no say in.
When they submit their application, they pretty much know what dates they're doing it. So
They
they
do a pretty good job until recently. Last year was the first time I saw them doing the two intersections. It was two different groups, but that was a bit much. Like I said, they're barely getting out of one intersection. They're stopping at another, like literally within a football field away, and they're being asked to stop again. That to me is a little over the top.
Yeah.
But other than that, if McAfee wants to have one, Vernon wants to have one, Pochuck wants to have one, and Highland Lakes wants to have one all at the same time, I'm okay with that. They're different parts of town. They're not, as long as the traffic's not affecting each other.
Right. And the other thing is the Pochuck Firehouse, they have to make application to the county.
But it's not just the Pochuck. Well,
They're on a county
specifically,
road.
because they're
They're on a
uniquely
county
on
road.
565.
Right.
They're only
So
on a county road.
If they solicit like the VFW, they will have to apply to the state.
But that application is a one-time thing. When they get their
Correct.
initial permits from the state or the county as required, that's a one-time thing. And then the per application thing, and again, this is all required by
Going is the
460.
same.
The per application thing is something they do internally here. But as far as getting the drawings and whatnot, that's a one-time thing. Unfortunately, the county requires an engineering drawing, whereas the state, you can hand draw, and then we review. And, the police department still has the ability that if, on a particular day, if they were impacting the flow of traffic, we can still shut them down. But that's not what we want to do. I don't want to have them set up a fund drive and find out the two of them set up too close to each other, so I got to tell one of them to go home. Which one do I tell to go home? So by putting the radius in there, it kind of avoids the problem. They know they can't set up too close to each other, and that's why that language is in there.
And when
So
the
when they, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So when they have to draw up their proposal, they only have to do it once, and that's,
There's an initial application, a permit that needs to be approved by the county and the state. That's once.
Right.
It's a one-time thing. And for example, the intersection by the Burger
or
King.
the town. The town.
The town, I don't remember the exact wording, so I don't want to misquote, but that they have to do on a regular basis, but I don't believe there's a fee involved. I think it's just a paperwork thing. And our traffic officer has offered to help them with all this. He's already walked them through, had meetings with the different groups. I myself met with all the fire chiefs. We've had multiple meetings going through this, trying to get them to understand where we're at as far as what we're looking for. And again, nobody's looking to micromanage it, but we're looking to make it legal.
I
That's
think
what we're
they
trying
have
do.
to apply yearly, but I think the drawing stays the same. They don't have to go back through the drawing.
The drawing has to be approved once. And what I was starting to say is by Burger King, if it's done by the Vernon Fire Department, well, the VFW can use the same drawing. Or if the Girl Scouts want to do it on a following weekend,
Well, the
we
state-
already have an engineer's drawing.
The
That
state only requires a hand-drawn.
the only question mark, which I think we got the answer to, is when it's an intersection of a county road. For example, if Vernon wanted to go back up towards, say, the Acme, now they're on a county road, then they would have to include them. But without that, I'm taking the opinion that they're, even the part that's common 94 and 515, we really refer that to as 94. We don't.
State
Yeah, the
supersedes it.
state, maintains it, so I would say that's the state. But yeah, that's, we're not looking to make them do anything they don't already have to do.
And I did have a call from the VFW today because they've been working with Ron Comaris,
Right.
and they were asking when was this going to be passed, because they need this because they have to apply to the state. So they need the ordinance in order to make application to the state along with the drawing.
because the state requires the permit from the town, I believe.
So does the county.
But it says that you're going to promise to supervise them, or not promise, but that you're going to
Well, it's our
supervise.
job with anything to, make sure that they're not negatively impacting the flow of traffic and to make sure they're not placing any people in danger. I mean, if they tried to stand in the middle of State Route 94 in the double yellow line while cars are going this way at 45 miles an hour, obviously we'd have to fix that. But there are other things they can do, whether it's an actual coin toss. Part of the problem for a couple of the fire departments is the statute requires that there be an existing traffic control device that stops them before they enter the roadway. But I've already spoken to some of the fire departments, and I think we've come up with acceptable alternatives that should allow them to do what they need to do. So we're trying to work with them. In the beginning there was a lot going back and forth that, what are we doing to them? We're really doing this for them, because without it, we can't have another fund drive until we make it legal.
Have you talked to all the ambulance? Vernon and
I myself didn't meet with them, but between my captain, my lieutenant, and my traffic officer, they've been met with, and Bob Constantine from the VFW has been advised as to what's going on.
Would you load your new mobile sign?
We don't have a sign. That would be a great idea, actually, but yeah, no. And there's signage requirements that are in there too, but they're minimal. I mean, most of them have existing signage that's probably going to comply with what they're required to do. Look, I wish I wasn't sitting here having to explain it to you. I wish we didn't need to do this, but until we do, they can't hold any fund drives.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to remove the receipt. All you're going to need is somebody not to get a receipt. It's going to be a big issue.
I just want to clarify, because I believe there's a misunderstanding. This ordinance is the current township code. It doesn't just apply. If you notice on the bottom, it says strikeouts or deletions, underlines, or added material. So this solicitation ordinance does not only apply to roadside solicitations. This is talking about people who go door to door and knock on people's doors and solicit, or stand at other places. So hearing your concern, maybe what you want to do, if you're concerned about it at a roadside, is instead in section 428-24, add the words, with the exception of a roadside solicitation, comma,
Okay.
any person organizing or receiving money, because you don't want to not have people be required to give receipts when they are doing those door-to-door solicitations.
But I
And
thought we
think there was
had-
a misunderstanding of that.
But I thought we had a code that was for charitable versus not charitable.
These are combined.
This is one solicitation orders for the whole.
And what about the 90 days?
That's for the entire town. So you don't want to have, that's It's your existing ordinance that the Township Council passed in 1996.
Was there anything wrong with
Town-
a year?
It's up to the township's prerogative if they want to change that, but that's what you passed in 1996.
You can amend it to be whatever time period you would like.
Do you see a disadvantage to a year
Or it's a charity, or,
rather than 90 days?
I don't see any reason why, one way or the other, that was just the staff benchmark.
Well, I suggest we change it to 1 year. Is that a major change?
I think they're both substantive changes that would require the ordinance to be reread again.
I say we leave it and worry about it later.
Wait a second, but this is just for roadways, am I correct? This doesn't
No,
apply
no,
for
this applies to everything.
everything, so then I think this has to be more encompassing. You're saying if somebody's going Girl Scouts are going door to door to sell cookies, this applies to them?
Yes.
So maybe now, now you have solicitors that aren't wearing tags. Shouldn't that be in the ordinance? Then it goes way beyond. If this is replacing the non-charitable solicitation as well, and I don't think this is encompassing enough.
This isn't the ordinance in its entirety. This is not all of Chapter 428. If you note, it starts on paragraph 19. So there are other paragraphs. This was just the sections that they were changing.
So there is
So there
sections,
is more material in the charitable solicitations chapter.
yes, that talks about not on Sundays, name badges, and
Yeah,
that
there's
all
a-
will remain.
Yes, all of
Okay.
that language is already there. This is only the sections that were being addressed.
Okay. All right, then I think we should make with the exception. That was a very good suggestion.
Made a motion for it.
But then we
Did I make a
cannot-
motion?
It would have to be reread at the next meeting.
Pardon?
You'd have to have you're making substantive changes to the ordinance on second reading, so it'd have to be reread and re-advertised again.
I think we leave it as is. Push it through.
It's just the substantive change. A year?
The year and the change about the receipts.
So could we introduce it, vote on it and then change it?
You could
After-
you could vote on the ordinance without the amendments, and then at the next meeting you could introduce amendments to the ordinance.
And they can still process their
yes.
permits? Okay, let's do that. Please.
Do you have a motion?
So is there a motion to approve the ordinance on second reading without the amendments and revisions?
Yes. I make motion.
First, we have to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Oh. Thank you, Randy. I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Is there a second?
Oh, I think
Oh, did you have, okay, sorry. Come forward.
I don't want to go over anything. I just have one point of information. 39460 is a may authorize, not a must authorize. And I think the exception for receipts is definitely something that has to go in there, because this does cover every solicitation, charitable solicitation in the town, including things like selling ads for Little League programs, selling sponsor banners for Little League. Those are all charitable solicitations. And that's what when I made my comment about not wanting to make comments about the existing ordinance, that's why, because there are basic issues in that ordinance. And I think putting it forward this way and changing it later, you're going to have to look at a lot more than just road signs.
But that is in it already. That,
Yeah, and the stuff that's in there is basically flawed.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
Larry McPhail. Larry McPhail in the Sussex area of Vernon. I'm on three nonprofit boards in town. Well, two nonprofit boards in town, one in Sussex County, and I'm a member of Glenwood Pochuck. And the stuff that's in here now is concerning, but that's not what's on the ordinance. I understand that. The roadside issues are the receipt and the fact that it's basically, stuff isn't being followed now. And that 39460 is a may authorize. It's not a shall authorize.
Would you mind writing the council a letter stating what you feel needs to be corrected?
I'd love to. It's not for this ordinance, though.
Are there any other members of the public that have comments?
Good evening, John Kosh. I'm Assistant Chief over in Pochuck Fire. Just want to go on with what Randy said. He did meet with the fire chiefs. We've had dialogue back and forth. What's in the ordinance is what we agreed on. I just want to make sure that you're aware that this is about a 4 to 6 week process to get the paperwork. And Pochuck Fire does it on Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. Between those 3 days, that encompasses about 1/3 of our fundraising to run the fire department. So if this gets delayed and misses, then it's going to put a substantial effect on the operating budget of the fire department. And I've told Gene before, you guys just want to raise our operating budget so we don't have to stand out there, that would be great. But just so you know that what Randy did say is true, and everyone did agree on that. And we had, on the fire side, I'm not sure about EMS and VFW, that we have no issues with it as written.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public? Seeing no one else, may I have a motion to close to public?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So there was,
Introduce, we're going to pass
As
it
is.
or vote on it, and then.
So can I have a motion?
reintroduce in how many weeks?
You propose new amendments after the 45 days, I believe, expires, when it becomes effective.
so may I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1809?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Owens,
Yes.
Councilmember Cady.
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger,
Abstain.
Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass ordinance 1809 as originally drafted.
Okay. We have public comments. Please note, comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. May I have a motion to open the floor to public comment?
Motion.
May I have a second? I'll
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up and make a comment?
Jesse Palladini. I just want to reiterate and state again for the record that the contract purchaser of the Board of Ed building on Route 515 is Bruce Zaretsky. He has placed a contingency that he wants a guarantee that the historic landmark designation is removed from the building before he will buy it. And that was told to us on the record by Historic Preservation Commission member Paul Mealy. So I again want to say that there is no provision in the law for you to be doing this. Whether or not this is permanently going away or sneaking back up on us at some future time. And I also want to state again that if you, Councilwoman Murphy, ever listed, showed, or sold any of his properties, you were in conflict for voting on it in February. And it occurs to me that you were also in conflict in being part of that so-called committee to try to find a resolution for the Historical Society where you came and participated and commented.
Thank you for your legal advice
September.
again.
Excuse me?
I said thank you for your legal advice.
I'm not done, and my 3 minutes aren't up. And anytime you interrupt me like that again, I'm going to just stop talking.
Please.
Well, I'm going to start up again and let the clock start again. You're not going to stop me from talking, Councilwoman Murphy. And again, I want to reiterate that you were in conflict when you voted in February, Councilman Auberger. So I just want you to remember that moving forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to step up and make a comment?
Hi,
Hi, Lisa Anderson from Glenwood. I don't know if this is the right venue. Can I ask something about the redevelopment?
You can make a comment. It's not a question and answer.
I just don't know if this is the right people to ask about the redevelopment plan. I wanted to know if I think there was no historic elements listed in the redevelopment plan study. So I want to know if anyone knew if the historic elements were added to it or not.
Then that would have been at the land use.
That's
That
land
probably
use.
would have been at the land use board.
So not here. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that have any comments? Seeing no one else, may I have a motion to close to public?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor, do you have any other report? You do not. Council comments? Councilor Wahlberger?
I have none.
Councilmember Van
No
Tassel?
comment.
Councilmember Kladish?
Ditto.
Councilmember Ohms?
Yes, I have comments. So I want to say thank you, Mayor Shortway, for your presentation. But I do think we should have discussed the town debt, because that's part of the whole thing, and that completes the whole circle. So I think we really should have had some discussion of the debt that this town is carrying to be included in this. And I think that we should discuss the debt so the public knows what we're faced with, and that do we have a plan going forward to reduce that debt? Because that's really stifling this town, this debt and bonding for everything. So just wanted to say that.
Comment that I have brought up at one point whether or not the building department would be able to stagger their hours, and I was told that it's possible that they may consider that, because I made a recommendation that it would be best if the hours of the building department were staggered, say to 7:30. This way contractors would be able to come in for permits earlier rather than wait till 8:30 or 9 o'clock. So, and I was just, like I said, just wondering if at all, if there was any other consideration.
When would you like to see it done?
When would you like to do it?
It was your suggestion, and we have employees that are willing to alter their hours in order to accomplish that.
I think it would be beneficial, like I said, for the contractors if they could start their day 7 or 7:30 here instead of coming back, around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Just my opinion, but I know contractors have said that. I mean, it would make it a lot friendlier. So,
Any council input on when you'd like to start?
you mean a date?
Yeah.
April 1st.
April 1st? I'll see if we can arrange
No,
that.
I mean,
That might
it's
be a little too soon.
yeah,
if we
like I said,
start.
that's up to you,
Yeah.
but
And again, the time, is it 7 or 7:30 you're looking for?
I mean, I would think 7, and I just brought up that Hopatcong does 7. I mean, it's, but it would certainly be better if it could just start earlier.
Okay, I'll send that something out to the council, let everybody know, and then actually, if it meets with all of your approval, we'll put it on the website.
Okay. This way the contractors will know they can come in. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.